Hello, I'm Matthew White. Now, if you own a holiday let, you're thinking of letting a property you already own, a self-catering accommodation, or you're thinking of buying a property and letting it a self-catering accommodation, then this video will be of interest to you. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the changes in legislation, what holiday accommodation providers now need to do to be compliant with the new COVID restrictions, how that impacts on the holiday accommodation providers, and how that impacts on their guests as well. Now, I'll be talking to you about the rule of 6, and I'm also going to be talking to you about the new NHS track and trace QR code poster that accommodation providers are required to display. But let's first go back to the rule of 6. Now, the rule of 6 is quite simple. Only 6 people can stay in a property, but there are exceptions. Now, believe it or not, you can have 6 people that have all come from 6 separate dwellings and live in a holiday accommodation property for whatever it might be, a short break, a week or 2 weeks. And those 6 people can stay in the holiday accommodation as long as they socially distance, which is probably unlikely, but nevertheless, that is allowed by the rule of 6. The other qualifying criteria is that the number of people can be greater than 6 if they are from the same household. So let's say you've got mum and dad and 5 kids. It's possible. That's 7 people. From one household, it's more than 6, but it's allowed because they're from one household. Equally, you can have more than 6 people if they create what's called a household bubble. So that's, say, 6 people from one household and 1 individual from another household that creates a permanent household bubble with that household of 6. That is allowed also under the rule of 6. Now, local authorities are enforcing the rule of 6, and they will be sending round officers, I'm sure, to check with accommodation providers and checking known accommodation that sleep more than 6 people. So we need to be aware of this, and we need to comply with this as holiday accommodation providers. So as the protocol, you need to check and trace the information that you are collecting from your tenants. You need to ask questions about their household. You need to ask questions about their household bubble. And if they don't qualify for either of those two, and they're a group more than 6 people, you should not allow the party to occupy the property. You as accommodation provider will be open to prosecution and a fine of £1,000 and £4,000 for any subsequent breach of those regulations. And also the holiday guests will be subject to a fine also. So my advice is, if you've got a party that's more than 6, you've got to check the household qualifying criteria and the household bubble qualifying criteria also. If they don't qualify, then do not allow them to enter the property and stay as a party more than 6 in breach of the rule of 6. If you have any queries about the rule of 6, then simply message me at Matthew White. The rule of 6 came in on the 18th of September, so it applies now. So you must comply now, and please, please, please do not breach the rule of 6. Now, the other consideration is the requirement legally now for holiday accommodation providers to display what's known as a NHS track and trace app QR code poster, and that's a bit of a mouthful. Basically, it's a QR code. If you're not familiar with the QR code poster, then please see this link, and we'll pop one up on the screen and you can see exactly what is required. Now, from the 24th of September, holiday accommodation providers are legally obliged to display one of these posters at their accommodation for guests to check in when they arrive. Now, this will override the requirement to record the guest's name, their address, telephone number, and the date and time of arrival and departure. Of course, scanning the QR code when the guest arrives will override that because the data is collected by the QR code. Again, if you breach these regulations, By not displaying a poster, you would be subject to a fine of up to £1,000 in the first instance and subsequently £4,000 for subsequent breaches. So 2 things to remember. You must adhere to the rule of 6. You must check the qualifying criteria for parties that are greater than 6, and you must display an NHS track and trace QR code poster at the entrance to your property. Now, if you own a complex of properties, say a barn conversions or apartments in a block, you can just create one QR poster and display that at the entrance to each accommodation unit. However, if there is a track and trace completed on the property, the track and trace will be on all of the units in that complex or that building. So perhaps it just might be easier for your guests if you create a QR code poster for each of those properties. Now I'm just going to put up on the screen here a link to the Gov website, which allows you to create the QR poster, which you can then print off from the email the government will send you. I suggest you laminate it and certainly stick it very prominently to the front door of the property or the entrance hallway for the guests to easily check in when they arrive at the property. Equally, the check-in QR code should be used by housekeeping operatives and also contractors that might attend the property to attend to repairs and maintenance. If you've got any queries on the QR code, if you've got any queries on the rule of 6, then please message me at Matthew White through Facebook. I hope this information has been of use to you. I'll be talking about the subject of holiday letting in another video that relates to the short-term letting of holiday accommodation throughout the winter and how you can navigate the recent changes in legislation to the 6-month notice requirement for short hold tenancies. I hope you found this very useful. Please tune in again. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Goodbye for now.